Everybody, welcome to a new edition of Right Align. It's we've only got one more left after this before the end of the year, which is a good way to end this calendar year. And this is a new one for us today. We've got Josh from Regular Studio. It's a new sort of theme for us, which is about building a design studio and really the intricacies and the nuances that come with that. What we'll do is ask Josh to go back to the start, or as far back as he'd like to walk us through, and then we can sort of can start to focus in and hone in on the actual studio building its process itself. If anybody's got any questions as we go throughout, please drop them into the live chat and I'll ask them either at the end or as we go throughout. If anything stands out that's relevant to what Josh is saying at the time, you can ask that. But while everybody's joining us, Josh, if it's okay for you to, like I say, take us back to as far as you think is relevant in terms of education, early stage career, and really to sort of lead us up to the point of why you built the studio.
Yeah, so I suppose I'll give a bit of background. So the studio is founded by myself and Sam Higgins, who's a copywriter, but I can't really give his background too much because I just guess he liked English earlier on. But for me, in terms of design and starting in design, I didn't really want to be a designer up until I was probably 21, 22. So I kind of went to college, didn't do design. I think I did art at GCSE. I wasn't very good. I was terrible at drawing. But it was a subject I was kind of interested in, but not really kind of pushed in that direction. I was much more towards sport and PE and kind of business more than that. And then I went and played football for a Welsh academy for a while and failed all my A levels very quickly because I just played football instead of going to the lessons. So I dropped out and went back to college and did graphic design, mainly because I thought it sounded cool. Did 2 years of a BTEC, kind of realized I wasn't going to get a job from a BTEC, and I actually was pretty terrible. So I kind of went into Gloucester Uni, did 2 years there, and then again didn't really enjoy graphic design for a long period of that until I did work experience. I fortunately went into a company out in Dubai for a month and helped out in this studio for a month. And this was towards like the end of my second year. And then it kind of really clicked. Oh, this could actually be fucking great. Could be really good and really enjoy it. And yeah, it was quite a while after that. So in my third year, I kind of really knuckled down and kind of cracked on. Thankfully, got through uni and got a job in London about 3 months after graduating, and kind of moved down. And I think it was about 3 months into that job, I got made redundant, which is a blessing and a curse because I kind of had a month of money left and had to really search what I wanted to do. I did an internship at Ann Smith, which was really great, and met some fantastic designers there for a month, and then moved into full-time for a company called 4 People, who, I spent 2.5 years there and I absolutely loved it. They're kind of the base of every design bit that I've done, the process, how they've done stuff. It's kind of how similarly I model like our projects as a studio now, like the base is from them with our own twist on it. And then I kind of moved out of London, moved up to Bristol for like my wife didn't like London at the time, so we was like, okay, we'll try somewhere new. Moved up to Bristol, absolutely hated the job I had. If anyone's listening, I didn't really enjoy it. And then I moved back to London and started freelancing, and I moved about for about 4 years. And I worked at kind of Method, Interbrand, JKR, and then went into in-house as well. So like the Body Shop, Vodafone. And so I spent a lot of time, like 6-month projects, either side of agency and kind of client side. I think you can kind of see the pain points from both sides. And actually, this is where kind of Regular Studio was born a little bit. Me and myself and Sam were working at the Body Shop for 6 months. We kind of had a room this size, and it was five freelancers, a project manager, Sam, who's a copywriter, and then 3 other designers. And we was kind of brought in to roll out the new brand identity across their stores globally and all of the internal kind of collateral and comms. And also I was there working on tweaking the logo for a month beforehand. And it was kind of, as time went on, we sat in this room and having a really good laugh and setting our own kind of rules of how we work and how we want to work. And as all kind of great ideas are built from, we went to the pub and me and Sam got absolutely hammered and was like, well, because it was a freelance group and me and Sam was running the project and we was both sat there like, well, if we're being trusted with this, maybe some other people would trust us with some other work. And yeah, so the idea was built from working together at the body shop and really got on as good mates, enjoyed a beer, come up with some terrible ideas. And then COVID hit and everything died. All freelance died for about 6 months for myself and Sam. And we realized, we was like, well, we've got nothing to lose because we didn't have any money anyway, because the COVID had stopped all projects. Thankfully, I had a bit of money saved up, Sam had a bit of money saved up, and we knew we had about 3 months before we had to start earning a bit of money to kind of either go back into freelancing. So we said, why don't we set up the company, give ourselves 3 months of like reaching out to people, doing the LinkedIn crawl, messaging friends, who needs this, who needs that. And thankfully, I played tennis really randomly. I played tennis with a friend's dad, and he was put on a board of a cafe company. They were going through a bit of a rebrand, and I said, "Oh, we can help out." So we did a little bit of help for them, and then I went to my gym, and one of the members was setting up her own brand, and she was like, "Oh, you're a graphic designer." And then all of a sudden, we kind of got 1 or 2 really small clients, and we was like, "Okay, that's enough money for 2 to 3 months." And we realized, okay, if we keep getting these, we can kind of roll on, because we're not spending a lot of money. Everything was closed, COVID. We didn't have an office. We had no kind of massive overheads. And we did that for about 6 months. We kind of rolled with smaller clients. And then we won a pitch for M&S for one of their campaigns, which was like, maybe we can use that money to get a smaller office. And we did, and it kind of picked up. We did another campaign for them, and then this kind of steamrolled from there, essentially. And now we're kind of 2.5 years in, or coming up to 2.5 years in. Obviously, I've jumped quite a bit of time in there, but we've grown from just myself and Sam to a team of 4. So we have 2 junior designers, hopefully a midweight designer or a senior designer in the new year, which we're gonna be putting out. So yeah, there'd be a team of 5 of us, mainly kind of graphic and branding. But I would say that's kind of the base structure of kind of where we got from, me not having an interest in graphic design and then setting up the studio and kind of running it as it is. But yeah, that's kind of the base structure of where we're at. And I think fortunately we've kind of built clients that trust us quite a lot and have passed us on to other people and kind of forwarded us on. And that's been our main way of getting new clients, is recommendations. And it's all been through recommendations of either people that I've worked with in the past, or clients who have someone who knows someone and they've passed it on. Yeah. But yeah, so we've tried to really build a collaborative nature with the clients and bringing them in and taking them along the journey of branding, graphics, website, whatever it might be, and kind of really letting them have an input. And that's kind of helped us bring in more and more clients, essentially.
Yeah. Going back to when you just mentioned there, Josh, about working at 4 people.
Yeah.
What was that they did, that structure, that sort of that you now carry on, and how much has that played a part in the development of the agency, in terms of you've been able to pretty much launch forget all the other sort of issues and the big issues like COVID and not having any clients or money, they're huge steps to overcome. But how did you find having those processes, or sort of a vague idea of those processes in place, that really allowed you to sort of immediately start with a head start?
I think so, yeah, because I think I was there 2.5 years at 4 people, and when I joined, there was only a few graphic designers. They're a company of like 100 and something now, but I think it was around 60 or 70 when I joined. But the graphics was only 6 or 7 people, And I think the one thing that they had was that it gave everyone a chance at anything they wanted to do. Like if you want to do a bit of film, they did a bit of film, they do graphics website, they kind of let you learn a lot of stuff. And when I was there, they would throw you into stuff as well. Like I remember just turning middleweight and holding meetings with clients and kind of presenting and doing stuff like that, but also going to the owners of the company. If I go back now, they'd be like, "Hi Josh, how's it going?" They knew everyone's name, and it was just such a nice environment to learn and kind of be given a chance to learn different skills. But also you'd see the whole process from, okay, right, we need to build brand strategy, values, positioning, things like this, and you would be part of that all the way through the project. And it might be on a project for 6 months, but you'd really get the ins and outs of everything going on. And I think having that kind of idea of brand strategy, and Sam obviously being copywriting, which really helps kind of build stories from brands, I think really set the base for us. And we tried to bring that in. But yeah, I think they were extremely instrumental in terms of how I run the small studio we have now and how we run the process of the collaborative nature. Everyone has an idea, they can say it. There isn't any hierarchy. Everyone's ideas are just as valid as mine or Sam's, just because we might have a bit more experience. Like recently we're doing a branding project and our junior designer presented a logo and the client was like, "This, I absolutely loved it." And I was like, I would have never got to where that was. I would have never got it. But we was like, let's show them everything and see how they like it. So I think that allowing people to thrive without restricting them a little bit was really great. And that's what they did with me.
So when you started regular, when you sort of, you that early genesis at the body shop, and then as you went solo, was the philosophy of the studio really important to you in terms of it's not just about the work processes, but the culture, the way that the team feel, the way that they're empowered and inspired to be part of that conversation?
Yeah.
Is that really one of the key points of the law?
So we wrote some kind of values early on that and it was quite weird because it was just me and Sam, and we're quite alike. We're very different but very alike in terms of our values. And we kind of wrote, I think it was like pride, collaboration. I can't remember what the third one was, but it was kind of pushing the boundaries or something like that. It was something wanky probably. But literally we wrote them down and we was like, we're not going to sit with this. But obviously now we've brought more team members in. We're like, okay, we really want it to be take pride. That's like, make sure you work, silly, like the small errors, like make sure all the spending's like, make sure it's the best it can be, things like that. And then we think collaboration is the biggest one, not just between us, but between us and clients. And then the curiosity, I think, is our third one of like, okay, let's try this, let's try that, let's explore loads of things. But yeah, so we wrote values, but we're rewriting them now at the moment, because as we grow, we realize that we probably need to have a bit of a structure of this is what you're going to be walking into if a new employee comes in, but also how we see ourselves and what we want to do. And they're not something that we're going to chant about, but it's just something that everyone should know, that this is what we want you to do. We want you to challenge and do loads of creative stuff and almost break the design rather than keep it safe, but also be really collaborative with everyone in the studio. But then with like simple things, make sure you get it right first time. There's no point in just check everything, check all your PDFs, check all this, and have the pride in the work that you want to do. So we're going to be relaunching our site soon, and hopefully looking for a few more people in the next year. So we're in the process of writing that at the moment.
Yeah. But I think it is something that's easy to maybe push to one side or just sort of say, we'll go, jump in the deep end. I think most people have done it that have been in that position. I did it myself. But for me, I think it's really good to try and understand what the whole point of what you're trying to achieve. As opposed to just being another designer that's just going to be part of that big landscape and ecosystem that's that is very, very noisy, isn't it, at the minute? And there's a lot of people going solo because of COVID or working on their own freelance, working from home, etc., etc. I think if you have some sort of values or purposes or whatever you want to call it, a manifesto, it's not only a way of communicating with a client, to find the right balance, but for a team, just because we're all designers doesn't mean that we don't have different, ways of wanting to see the world or the impact we want to have.
And I think that for us, the biggest one is just collaboration, because like, especially with clients, we're never going to know them as well as they know themselves. And I never want to do a project where we go, let's say it was a branding project, and we get briefed. We go, oh, cool. All right, we're going to go away for a month. We're not really going to talk to you. We're going to go away, and then we're going to present back what we think you should be. I can't see how that brings the best work. It's more like we always try and do a few workshops where we go, okay, let's sit in the room. What does this brand mean to you? They're the people living it. They're the people who are going to live it once we're gone. Once the project's finished, they still have to carry it on. So we really try and bring them in and be like, okay, what do you see your brand is? Why? And really probe them and ask them a lot of questions, but then take them along the kind of journey with it. So I think that's our main, and to be honest, that's our biggest value, and how we've got more clients is by having that nature of, okay, yeah, right, we'll get down in the trenches for you. We'll work it out together, and then we'll go away. Yeah, we'll do a bit of design, and we'll go, right, we feel like this should be your new brand because of everything we talked about. Here's the questions you had. Here's the answers we have. And they feel part of it, which is almost a much nicer outcome rather than, and we've done both. We've done both of, some clients don't want to do the workshop. They don't really care about brand. They just want a new brand, which is fine. But I always feel like the projects that we're more involved in, and they probably pay less than the ones that we're less involved in, are more special and we enjoy more. And I think that's a big part of it is making sure that we enjoy it. If this type of client we don't enjoy, sometimes you have to do them financially, keep the studio going. But if we get 1 or 2 projects a year that we really fucking enjoy having a journey with, and we can go for a beer with them, become like almost friends with like the clients, it's much more special than just the kind of conveyor belt of projects.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just going right back to the start of the studio again, when you're at the body shop, what I'm really interested in this series that we'll be doing more regularly is trying to understand that those very small steps that sometimes get overlooked in terms of launch a studio, started working with Nike, and I will employ 100 people. That sort of glorification of the whole process I find sometimes a little bit off-putting. And I think people need to know much more about the baby steps, as well as the big growth parts, which are great. So when you and Sam are both at the body shop freelancing, you then go to the boozer and you decide to do this, because you can do this, you're already doing it, can somebody else, why don't you do it for yourself? What did that then look like in terms of before you got the coffee shop work? Was that so I'm back at work, I have to go and register the company, you have to come up with a logo, a name, how does that work?
There was probably a 6-month period between it. So I finished the body shop contract a little bit earlier than Sam. Sam stayed on to kind of finish off the project. I kind of finished all the design bits, so I kind of moved on. But there was about a 6-month period, and then COVID really hit and everything shut down. I remember Sam, I don't think we'd spoke for a few weeks, and I think he was quiet on work. I was quite quiet on work, and he messaged me and he said, "Oh, remember we had a chat about opening the studio?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why don't we do it?" And I was like, gosh. At the time, you think it's really risky, but the more we chatted, it's like, well, actually, we have nothing to lose, really. So he was like, "Oh, we'll have to start thinking about a name." And about 2 years earlier, I bought the domain name rglr.studio, regular studio. And I said, "Oh, I've got a name." And he was like, "Why?" He's like, "How?" I was like, "I just buy domain names just in case, a new project or a new idea comes up." I said, "What do you think about regular studio?" And he was like, "I'm not sold on it." I said, "Well, so we're kind of 2 regular blokes, and we just want to work with regular people and create design with them." And I was like, "That's pretty much it. We're not at the intersection of design, experience, all that crap that people say. We're just 2 regular people that want to work with good people and try and do the best work that we can do." And as I kind of sold it a little bit more to him, he was like, "All right, let's stick with the name." So Sam registered the company. We didn't really do anything for a month or so. We kind of planned out how we was going to do it. Like, okay, how are we going to get clients? I was like, right, I'll reach out to people I've worked with, see if they need anything. It was all quiet. And then Sam was like, I'll reach out. His friends work with multiple different people. His girlfriend works for a product company as well. So we was like, okay, we'll reach out to everyone that we think could bring us work. It drew a blank pretty much for a while. And so we was like, okay, we'll do the logo, quickly mocked up the logo, and they're wrapped in tinsel. At the moment, we did our Christmas decks yesterday. I quickly did a logo, quickly mocked up a site, and put a few bits of work on that I could show some of the body shop stuff and everything. And then it was probably, I think it was like September or October, I played tennis with a friend and his dad. And my friend had told his dad that I'd set up this company, and he was like, how's it going? I was like, yeah, great. Really quiet, so quiet. We had no work. And he was like, I might have a little project to kind of for you to work on, and kind of a little bit of a refresh of a brand, and kind of how the hierarchy, they own multiple cafes, and it was like how the brand hierarchy works between the master brand essentially and the other brands. But the budgets were quite small, but they were really lovely people to work with. So yeah, we kind of kicked off with those, and it went on for a month. We didn't really have any other work then, and until someone messaged me on Instagram from the gym I worked at. I went to, and she was like, I'm going to set up a brand. I was like, oh, amazing. And Phil, the owner, who was also a friend of mine, was like, recommended you, and I think someone else recommended me in the gym, which was great. And this was in October or November. And then we knew we had a bit of money that we could have 3 months. 3 months before we'd run out and we'd have no money. So we sat down, and I think he was allowed to meet up then. We got in a room and we sat down and said, look, we have 3 months. And I was still freelancing a little bit, like 1 or 2 days a week elsewhere. Sam was also doing the same. And I said to him, I said, why don't we for 3 months stop the freelancing? Because the idea was we was going to freelance a few days a week, and then we would slowly move to the studio, do like 4 days freelance and 1 day studio, 3 days, two, 3, and slowly evolve into the studio. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work, because we're always going to be committed. We're always going to have a certain amount of money coming in from freelance that we need or we want more than anything. So I said, why don't we go cold turkey on the freelancing side and really commit for 3 months? We both agreed, and it's like, okay, we got 3 months. How are we going to make this happen? All right, let's do all the outreach again. Let's do all the outreach. Don't worry about socials. Don't worry about that. Let's make our creds as brilliant as we can. Like, use some of the work again, chatted to everyone, and thankfully we got asked to pitch to someone we know worked for. It's always someone you know. It's always someone you know. Someone you know passed us on to M&S, and they asked us to pitch for a campaign. But the January in the first year was the most miserable month. We had no money coming in. We'd finished the projects. We had no money coming in. No one was answering our calls. And I was like, oh, God, this is going to be painful. And January blues as well. So it's like COVID, January blues, no money, no work coming in. It's like, this is going to be, it's died a death within 3 months. And then thankfully we won the pitch for M&S. I think it was again 4 months worth of money. I was like, well, great. You got 4 months to find another job. 4 months, that's it. That's all we need is another, like, we're fine for money for 4 months. Well, it was about 3 months. And then they asked us to do another little project within them. I was like, fantastic. But their payment terms changed halfway through to 90 days or 60 or 90 days. And I was like, oh, wow, we really have to budget here. But thankfully we picked up like 1 or 2 smaller projects, helping some people out with like socials and a few little kind of retainers here and there. That it wasn't work that we necessarily wanted to do, but we wanted the studio to work. So we had to do some work that we're like, oh God, this is terrible. I hated it. But we had to do it because it was a necessity to keep the studio going. And we knew in 90 days or 60 days, we're getting a lump sum from M&S, which is great. And we can maybe focus on bigger projects. But yeah, it was a massive struggle in the start in terms of finding clients. And it's quite difficult mentally to keep morale up in January when you've got nothing coming in, nothing looks positive. But we kind of just thought, let's just keep plugging away, and hopefully we'll catch a break. But we kind of had this theory that if we could get in a room with people rather than the Zoom or rather than that, and it was quite difficult obviously because of COVID, it was like, if we can get in a room with people and for a pitch or anything, we'll go above and beyond and try and sell it as much as we can. And we was quite confident if we get in a room with people, we could sell them the dream essentially. But it was getting in the room that was such a difficult task.
Going back to, I was going to ask you, but you just touched upon it slightly then. In those early days before the coffee shop work and that first sort of initial project that you got, what was that mental sort of frame of mind like? What was, I've been there myself, and I know my personal experiences, and everybody's varies. But what was it for you and Sam? How did that affect you?
I think it's quite a weird. I think COVID in general for myself was quite a, I can't speak for Sam, but for myself, a very odd experience. I quite like being in studios. I quite like being around a lot of people. I've always played sport, played football, and done stuff like that. But also, I'd freelanced for 5 years, and the only breaks I had in work were the ones I kind of wanted to go on holiday. I was always quite fortunate that I had contracts lined up. So actually, at the flick of a switch, it was like, okay, that's gone. Now you're locked inside. Can't do anything like that. So for me, working virtually was terrible. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. It got to the point where me and Sam would be on Zoom and I'd be like, I can't do this. This is terrible. This is awful. It's not the same thing. But the pressure of that January was, and we talk about it now, actually talked about it yesterday. And I was like, remember January 2 years ago? And he was like, yeah. That, and I know for Sam, he was like, this is the worst. He like feeling really down in the dumps. But we had no choice. It's kind of, we have to crack on and kind of hope that something comes. I mean, I was quite optimistic that something would pop up, even if it was something small that could keep us ticking over for a month. 1 month, we'd be like, okay, great. That's 1 month more that we're doing something that we want to do. So it was the goal of having our own studio was pushing us, even though it was a massive struggle, like mentally. But I think in those times, it kind of really sets, like Sam, we doubled down on everything. He was like, okay, we'll do all the LinkedIn. We'll do it. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and go through LinkedIn every day and be like, okay, who needs work? Who needs work? Tick, 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 message. I've messaged 30 people today. Sam would be like, Sam would do it in the middle of the day. So he'd message different people. I'd message these people. And those clients never, well, 1 or 2 would come through, but they're not the ones that kind of stick around anyway, because it's kind of a one project basis and you're out. But yeah, so we kind of just doubled down and stuck in a little bit as long as we could until something popped up and hoped, and a bit lucky. But yeah, thankfully M&S come in and saved the day for a little bit.
Yeah, and if
it was pretty close. It was pretty close to closing down. Like a few more weeks, in those early stages, a few more weeks. If we hadn't got work, we probably would have gone back to the model of freelancing a little bit, and then that was our backup plan of we'll freelance and do the studio. But I felt like if we had gone back, see, then we've lost a load of money for 3 months. We haven't earned the money that we was earning. It'd be easy to go full freelance and lose the studio. So I was more worried about going back. I'd rather lose the studio than do the split in a weird way. So yeah, so thankfully we didn't have to go back.
Yeah, did you find that period of the early stage where it's obviously coming out of COVID, we all went through different personal experiences, and then starting a business, the detrimental effect of that? Did you, in hindsight, do you think that was built resilience? That's sort of built an inner strength that's before?
I think, yeah, absolutely. It's like, because we had a quiet time. January's have been generally quiet for us. So we had a quiet time last January, but thankfully we had a bit of money banked up, and we was like, okay, we can focus on projects that we want to do. So I think Scarlett had joined our junior designer, and she really wanted to learn animation. She was like, cool, we've probably got a month here where we're going to be quiet, that we've got the luxury of, you can learn new skills, we can do our creds, we can reevaluate everything. So I think from the first year, even though we had no money coming in the second year for January, we had a bit of money saved up, so it was a bit more luxury, but we used it as a really positive thing to do for us in terms of refresh our creds, look at our website, do something else. But I think, yeah, that was probably the hardest month out of the time we've had, and definitely has built resilience, because we've got it as a reference point when we're really stressed, because if we're busy, it's just like, okay, remember January 2 years ago. Remember January 2 years ago. And I'd much rather be stressed now because we've got a deadline looming, or we've got this or that, than have nothing looming. And if we do have a bit of time free, great, let's work on, new skills, things like that. If Caitlin wants to learn coding or anything like that, you can do that in your own time. So I think, yeah, it definitely a lot of resilience.
Yeah, and also, do you find that because of that experience and how owning your own business is like a different level, isn't it? It's not just a financial, a business commitment thing. It is like a baby, isn't it? It's an age-old cliche, but it very much is that. You know it better than anybody else, and you care for it more than anybody else sort of mentality. Have you found that now you guys do it for yourself? Is that, and you can recall the tough times, that there's this idea of going above and beyond all of the time within reason, because I think there's a tendency to sort of see things on social media where it's this ideal that you only do what chargeable hours are, and in an ideal world that is the case, isn't it? But I think a lot of us probably lose income because we do spend more than what we necessarily charge on it. But that's a pride thing. You want to be remembered to people to come back and use your time and time again. Do you have that mentality through those tough times, runs through everything that you do within the business?
Yeah, I still think like we do loads of stuff that we don't bill for. Like there'll be little bits that a client will come in and we'll be like, oh God, it's too much. Like even, can you make amends on this or whatever? And we're like, yeah, we'd rather keep them please our clients and lose out on a little bit of money or whatever it is, and keep the relationship. So I still think we still go above and beyond now with, getting them in, working with them, even if small project. All right, come in, let's go for lunch and let's chat about this and have a bit of fun with it. But I think, yeah, definitely still trying to do that.
But there's nothing wrong with that, is there? I think I say you reference points on, say, especially things like LinkedIn, where people say that's toxic, or that's a bad thing to do, or hustle culture, all that sort of things. But I think
we don't work. In this year, we've probably done 2 nights past 8 p.m. and we do 9 till 5. 9 till 5. Most studios do 9 till 6. I don't want to be here at 6 o'clock. I want to go home. I want to if we can't get it done in the time that if we can't get the project done in the time that we've planned, me and Sam have planned it wrong. And that's it. If we said, we can do something in 2 weeks and it doesn't work like that, like sometimes there's some errors and there's a fuck up here and there and someone's dropped the ball. But if we think we can do a project in 4 weeks and it ends up being 4 weeks, but everyone's worked late for 2 of those weeks, that's not what we want to do. I'd rather say that project's going to take an extra week and everyone works 9 till 5. Everyone goes home an hour earlier. Everyone gets the tube an hour earlier because it's quieter and nicer. We all have better, nicer lives outside. We spend more time out of the studio than we do in. So I think, yeah, I don't want to be the work 24 hours a day LinkedIn crap. I'd hate it. It drives me nuts. But also that's not a way to work. Like you're just going to burn out, and like I feel burnt out this year from working 9 to 5, from probably not taking enough time off. So I think every year me and Sam we have a yearly meeting, just me and him, when we sit down. Okay, what are the wins? What have we fucked up? What do we need to change for next year? So I think like next year we're bringing in like mental health days. If someone just doesn't want to be in the office or doesn't feel great, have a day off. That's it. Whenever you want. Work from home, we do a little bit of flexibility. We've obviously got junior staff, so we try and work on like a 4-to-1 basis. But the junior designers want to be in, which is great because it's easier to teach and for them to learn, but also to collaborate. Everyone chats through stuff and things move a little bit quicker. But I don't want this thing of working 24 hours a day and doing as much as you can. We'll do as much as we can within 9 to 5. And if it's 5:30, cool. But we're not going to be here till 10 p.m. working on a pitch for the next day. That's not going to happen.
100%. Just thinking, I speak to quite a few people, and I've always thought about this myself. I started on my own when I initially started. But what's been the benefits of having, going in with a partner?
Well, we've got different skill sets. First of all, Sam's a copywriter. Obviously, I'm a designer. I can't write copy. Sam can't write design. So it's, but also we can sell in both sides. We can sell in a bit more of a holistic brand experience, because otherwise I'd have to bring contractors in and do stuff like that. But also we're different personalities, which is good. We get really annoyed at the same things, but I'll shout about it and effing swear and blind. Sam will be really reserved and quite calm about it. But we'll both get to the same solution. But also Sam has chipped in a lot more in terms of like the business side, like the new business, like all the kind of more admin-y stuff, because most of our stuff is design, which takes up probably 80%. And then there's 20% copywriting in and out, but it's not full days. So Sam chips in wherever he can, which is fantastic for me. And because I'm allowed to kind of look over design and actually do design sometimes. But yeah, so I think we kind of sat down and aligned each other's roles of, okay, and we do it every year. I said, what's the stuff you've done this year that you don't want to do? Sam's like, all right, I don't want to do all the invoicing. I don't want to be on this email thread, or I don't want to manage this client. So I'll take over that client. I'll do the invoices. And then I'll be like, okay, I don't want to be on this client. I don't want to manage this client. So Sam will do all the relationship with that client. So we kind of flex it as and when, and then swap when people are annoying us.
Yeah, I always thought that must be quite a nice place to be, because you've got, it's not just about the day-to-day job, is it? It's about that soundboard, somebody to help develop it. You obviously got to generate twice as much income, but it must be really good to have that support network within the business of somebody that you already get on with.
And I think we kind of have that now. We're quite instinctive. We walk in, I can see Sam might not be in a great mood, or I might not be in a great mood, and he'll be like, okay, let's go for a walk. And we'll walk, and we'll go for like an hour walk. We'll go up to Spitzfield. We'll talk through everything that we need to do, all the projects going on. We'll go for a walk, grab a coffee, carry on walking, and we'll literally just go out for 30 minutes, an hour, and just walk around and be like, right, why are you feeling shit? What's going on? What's stressing you out? What's going on? And it could be personal, it could be work. There's lots of things going on. And we'll just walk it out essentially, and then come back to the studio refreshed and be like, right, here's what we need to do. And we do the same with the junior. If, like, for example, if one of them's not feeling great, cool, do you want to go and grab a coffee? Let's go for a walk. Get out of the studio. We don't want to sit in here and just feel miserable. We want to get out and try and make everyone feel a little bit more comfortable and kind of get to the root of the problem, whether it be work stress, life stress, or whatever, really.
Yeah, and as the studio sort of progressed and rolled on, you pick more clients up. Have you ever had that dreaded, really bad experience? I know we've all had sort of clients that can push it a little bit, be a bit frustrating, and but you still ultimately finish the job and continue to work together. Have you had any of those where it's been to a point where you've had to end a relationship, or things have soured, and how have you dealt with that as a business?
So we had one client probably in year 2 that we was working on a kind of retainer model, but it was quite pushy and quite reactive. They just wanted stuff all the time, and it not really kind of within time frames. It was like, okay, can you change this now? Can you do this now? And we had other clients paying more, and kind of we was enjoying more. And it got to the point, I remember Sam was managing them, and he was like, "This is the worst." And I said, "No." I said, "Something's gonna break. We're either gonna get rid of them, or they're gonna get rid of us. Either way, it would be quite nice." And I always remember I was in the pub with my dad. I was in Wales. Sam rung me, and Sam rung me, and I went outside, chatted to him. I went inside. I think we was on a retainer, and it was quite a bit of money for the studio in the second year. And I come in with that. My dad was like, "What are you smiling about?" I said, "Our clients just fired us." And I was like, he was like, "Why are you laughing?" I was like, "Because they were a nightmare." And we didn't, but also we said yes to things that we didn't know we wouldn't like. So we said, "Look, we'll work on this. Yeah, it'll be great." And then you're 2 months in, you're like, "Oh God, I really wish I wasn't doing this." But then in the third year, we go, "Okay, we're not going to do those clients again. We're not going to do that type of work, because we know the level of stress and care or whatever it is that isn't there that we want to do." But you don't necessarily know that until you've done it. So it's kind of, we're saying as we grow, we say yes to everything, because we're not going to find out what we really want to do. We can say, "Oh yeah, we want to do brand identity." We might not want to do that all the time. We need a bit of variety in the studio. Otherwise, I think it'd become a bit bland. I think the multidisciplinary approach is much better, of trying a little bit of that. And thankfully, we've had clients that have trusted us, like art directing shoots, doing this, doing that, collaborating with video production, things like animation. So we've done a lot of other things than just our core, which is graphics and branding.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get it wrong and go, yeah, I'll do that. And you're like, "Oh, I really wish I wasn't doing that." So actually, I think the one that we've kind of, they kind of ended the relationship. I'll be honest, we lost a lot of money, but I was really happy about it. Mainly mentally, because I was like, we can survive without them. Like, we'll find another client. We'll find more clients. We was doing decent work, and all our clients were happy. So I was like, okay, if this amount of people are happy, there's more and more companies that we could help out and make happy. So it was more of a glass half full than a glass half empty, because it's like, okay, is the money worth it? And we realized it wasn't, and we knew it wasn't. And we go, cool, it wasn't worth it. We're not going to do that again. And we just don't go near that type of work, which is fine.
It's funny, isn't it? Because the immediate fallback is the financial repercussions. That's the first thing. It's happened to me a few times in other people's businesses as well as mine. And that's quite a scary place, isn't it? Because all you think about is what you need to make that month or that quarter, et cetera, et cetera. But when you do let it go, the sort of the release and the pressure is immense.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding afterwards. It took me a bit of time for it to settle in, but it sort of really realigned what I was trying to achieve.
Yeah, I just remember just walking back into the pub and my dad being like, "What are you smiling about?" And I was like, "I've just been fired by a client." He was like, "How much money?" I was like, I don't know how much it was in the end, but I was like, it was a lot of money. My dad was like, "Why are you not just knuckling down and doing it?" I was like, "Because we've had a month of just a miserable existence of just like, God, this is terrible. We don't want to be doing this." And they're constantly like on us. And I'm just like, you're not going to get good work by being like that. And everything we'd suggest wouldn't really go down well. And so it's kind of, I don't think it would have been long, and it would have been the opposite way around of us going, "Guys, we can't do this anymore." Yeah. I think it was both a breaking point, and then it was a really nice kind of amicable. And then it was like, okay, we know this isn't working for both of us. Let's call it a day. We'll pay out what we pay, and that was it done. So I was like, cool, rounds on me.
Yeah, and I think for all of the industries in the world, I think creative is got to be the one where that relationship has to be mutual, isn't it? It's not a one-way thing. But let me just throw over to some of the questions that I popped up, Josh. Matt has asked, if you were able to freelance so easily, why was there a difficulty in turning those clients into agency clients?
So I think a lot of my freelancing, I was working for agencies. So I was going into agencies like JKR, Interbrand, for people. I worked a lot for people freelancing. And obviously you can't touch those clients because you're a freelancer there and you're under NDA and everything. So that's something that I couldn't really explore. And then the ones that so the body shop we did convert into a client, and we've done a bit of work with them over the last 2 years, little projects here and there, helping them out. So that's the only one that we really converted, but a lot of it was I couldn't convert because I was working in agencies for clients, and I wasn't allowed to go near them, which is absolutely fine. But I think actually it was a benefit, if anything, rather than taking clients that were existing and kind of building something, because we started off with nothing and we had to learn how to build it from no clients. Like the body shop didn't get in touch until like a year after the studio was going. So we had to have that tough time at the start to find clients, and I kind of enjoyed the benefit of doing that, of mucking in and trying to make it work, rather than, like, obviously some studios take clients with them and they have 120 grand and they can get a 120 grand retainer and they can go, cool, we'll start a studio, we'll go to the office, we employ a few people and build, which is fantastic. And sometimes I wish we had that. But also on the flip side, we really had to struggle those first 3 to 6 months and financially take the hit a little bit. Like, for example, I think mine and Sam's wages halved in a flick of a switch, from going from freelance to probably more than halved. But we wanted to do it because we wanted to build something rather than be part of something.
Yeah, and also I've noticed in the past, sometimes if you take clients from a next place, and not in a negative way, they just want to come with you because maybe you work with them solely. It wasn't like you're poaching clients. But sometimes I've noticed that they are so ingrained in the model of the agency you were at before, that they don't want to necessarily fit in with your purpose and values. The reason why you started, it wasn't just to become a designer or a business owner. It's because you had a different vision for design. But maybe sort of stuck in their ways, and that relationship isn't always the best. It's best to try and find.
And also freelancing for agencies, you're not necessarily in the client's face. Like, you're not necessarily client facing at some agencies. So some of them I were, some of them are not. So it's quite a difficult one to take clients over. But like I said, it was a bit of a struggle, but we finally made it.
There's also the case of not necessarily wanting to burn too many bridges, either.
Exactly.
Know where you'll come across people and hopefully need them, and the network is important, isn't it, as opposed to immediate short-term gain. Adam has just dropped in. How much of your time do you dedicate each week, you and Sam, to new business compared to working on ongoing projects?
So actually, we've got a bit of a model with, we kind of work with a freelance new business person, essentially. And so we do a little bit ourselves. It all depends on the next quarter, how busy we can see the next quarter. If we're like, okay, it's going to be super busy in the next quarter, we'll probably be a little bit quieter, like a few hours here and there. But also we have kind of a new business person that introduces us to clients now, that we met through one of our clients. So it's a weird inception of, we had a client and they passed on to this new business person who helps us out and introduces us to projects that I think that'll suit the studio. And we've won quite a bit of work through that introduction. So I think, if anything, getting that person who's a bit of a freelancer was perfect for us, because we don't have to put as much effort in. We still do, and still reach out to certain people when we see something going on, but it's not, at the moment, it's not massive. And like I said, it depends on quarter. Sam does it a little bit more than me. He keeps his eyes and ears to the ground and kind of looks around, whereas I kind of ignore it a little bit and hope everything's gonna be all right. But I'd say Sam probably spends a little bit more time, a few hours a week. But like I said, I think we have two kind of new business people that they take a kind of commission off a project, which for us is perfect.
Yeah, I think that's something that isn't spoken about very often, is it? Is the supply chain that you need. Various points. It's like, who do you trust to do things that you're probably not best skilled at, like say accountancy? Or something I sort of, it puts the fear of God into me, the idea of doing books and numbers and stuff. So having somebody that you trust and you can get on with is really important. And that's the same for new business or leads or marketing or even writing blogs and all these sorts of things. I think there's quite a hidden supply chain behind a lot of businesses that aren't necessarily always put out there into the public.
we've been quite lazy with it, to be honest. Like even our website is so pared back, there's pretty much nothing on it. But I also kind of like that. We're going to change it because we have to. Sam's told me we have to. So so we're going to redesign that in the new year, but kind of almost liked just showing a flash of what the stuff we did and being like, this is it. That's pretty much it. A little bit about we're a regular studio, we want to work with regular clients, that kind of the spiel. But I almost like with things like marketing, like Instagram, stuff like that, LinkedIn, I'm absolutely terrible at it. I hate it personally, but I know we have to do it. It's just kind of, we have to get some stuff out there because I think our client from M&S were like, oh, so we looked at your Instagram. And I was like, oh, we looked at your website. And there's nothing there. And I was like, because we've only got a GIF up and that's only been up for about 3 months. Before that, it was just regular studio and independent design studio in London. That was it, nothing else. And I was like, yeah, because we wanted to get in the room with people. And we thought that might be interesting enough to show nothing and be confident enough in showing nothing that people might want to talk to us. And weirdly, it worked for a period of time. But now we've kind of finished a few projects, we kind of have to start showing a little bit more. And as we kind of want to grow, the only way we're going to get bigger clients is showing some of the stuff that we've done. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully in the new year we'll have a site up. I can't promise anything because
it's incredibly time consuming, isn't it? It makes it sound, because it's sort of maybe a service you do as a job, a living, you can click your fingers and do it immediately. But I think we're the most hypercritical, let alone not having the time to do it. So it's a long-term process, isn't it? But
also this, I look at all the design studios, kind of Instagrams and things like that. And I'm like, oh God, that looks so good. I'm like, it looks so like, and there's so many different styles. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like look at Collins and Koto and all those guys. I'm like, yeah, so good. I'm like, they're so good. And now I'm like, oh, well, we're Studio 4 and we've been going 2 and a bit years. You know, those guys have been going for, I don't know, 20 years or whatever, however long. But I'm like, yeah, they're super impressive. But also, as long as we're enjoying the projects, I don't care about how many likes. I'm never going to care about how many likes one of our posts have or anything like that. We're not in it for that. We're in it to try and enjoy the projects with the clients we're having, not for the accreditation of the design community that can be very harsh and at times. And maybe it's just like, maybe I'm just getting old and I just don't care about it. I don't care about Instagram myself. So it's a bit of a weird one, but we're going to try and be better next year.
Yeah, well, I've been very lucky enough to speak to quite a lot of those guys through Right Align.
Yeah,
believe me, they've all been in the same boat, mate. It's we're not all one-offs, and we're not the only ones suffering. It's they've all been there, and it takes decades to build these things. As we're coming to the end, Josh, there's a couple more questions. So Sam has asked, if you were to start over again, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently, and what would you spend more time on?
I'd probably spend more time on our creds. I think in the beginning we rushed to get them out, and we rushed the thinking behind it in terms of like the deck and everything that we did. We didn't really sell ourselves enough. And I think I would have spent a lot more time definitely on the creds, but also I think we trawled LinkedIn for opportunities, which you could message 100 people and one person might message you back. But then you've got to convert that into a client and they've got to have the right budget. No one likes to tell budget. No clients like to tell you budget. And you're like, oh, this is how much I think it's going to cost. But also getting a costing model that is a bit more strict. Obviously, there's going to be flex depending on the size of the client, for a bit more of a costing model from the start, because I think that's been one of the most difficult things, is costing up projects. And that's mainly because I was a freelancer and I was on a day rate, and that was it. That's all I knew. I knew Sam's day rate, and it's easy to just go, oh yeah, we're just going to smash those day rates together. Then some clients are like, why the hell are you going to charge us X amount a day when you think it shouldn't cost that? You know, you're doing a poster. You're like, oh, here's 1 day's work of both of us. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. So I think a bit more of a costing model from the start, and how we would look for new work. I think probably then I'd going against my Instagram point. I would probably double down on Instagram and make it look really great and get in the habit of doing it. Because I think LinkedIn didn't really, it worked. We had 1 or 2 clients from it, but for the amount of time spent in, it was a lot of time wasted. I definitely wouldn't have done that. In terms of running the studio, I don't think we really changed anything.
Yeah, I think Jordan has dropped a question in, which I think is probably the perfect way to end it. It says, going into next year, have you guys set any goals that you want to achieve? Because you mentioned earlier about expanding the team.
Yeah, so I think next year we definitely want to expand, and we're probably going to expand in the first quarter to get another designer. We usually write out different projects that we want to work on. Like if we want to work on a branding project, I really want to work on a campaign. Thankfully, yesterday we won a pitch to get a campaign, so I'm just like, yep, take off. But I think probably the next year is to sustain where we're at. We've already grown from year 2 in terms of we're pretty close to growing from year 2 in the first 6 months of year 3. So I think we need to carry on that in terms of financially. It looks like we're probably going to hit our low target, possibly our mid target pretty soon, which is really good. So that means we're going to bring in another designer. And then the next person to bring in, I think, is more expanding the team rather than other things. I think obviously seeing Scarlett and Caitlin, the junior designers, grow and giving them more confidence and introducing them to clients and kind of making sure that they're there from phase 1 all the way through to a project so they can see it, not just being like, oh, can you just do this little task, this little task, this little task. It's kind of bringing them up and making sure they're learning a lot of skills. But yeah, I think expanding the team is probably our biggest one, and maybe a new office because we're running out of space a little bit.
Yeah, that's sounds like a really great start to this series from my perspective, and it's great to hear about your growth in such a short period of time. It might have felt like growth to you guys, but it's I think from my perspective, and hopefully everybody that's tuning in, it sort of just gives a bit of an insight. It's very individual to your story, you and Sam's, but it's there's still a lot of general points there which I think a lot of people face.
Yeah, no, cheers for having me on.